Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. So what we're looking at right now is the KV-1S. S standing for Skoroznoi, or Fast Moving. It is the fast moving and lighter armored KV-1. So this has been on the dev blog, and here's some footage from the test server right here. But if you look at the KV-1 line, I think the KV-1 L11 at battle rating 3.7 is a little bit disappointing. And we're going to see some gameplay on the KV-1 after this clip here. But I'm wondering where some of the lower and middle tier heavy tanks really have a place for in War Thunder, and we'll talk about that. And we'll also be talking about some other things. So real quick note is the Tank Request series. I released an episode yesterday, so if you want to make your vote on which tank I should show off in the next episode, you can check out that episode, put your comment, and like other comments to kind of get that vehicle combination to the top. Also, I have a huge announcement coming today. I'll be putting that on Twitter later today at Baron Vaughn Games. It's something that's more personal, so if you're not really interested in other things other than War Thunder, World of Warships, Armored Warfare, and stuff like that, hey, that's cool too. But on Twitter, I got a big personal announcement, which I'm very excited for. So, the KV-1S, right? They're saying that it is going to be in between the KV-1 L11, which has a battle rating of 3.7, and then the KV-1 ZIS-5. Now, the KV-1S does have the ZIS-5 gun, which is good, but you lose a decent amount of armor through the Skoroznoi modifications, whereby you're taking off a lot of the extra armor. So, in some ways, you're just a very, very big, high-profile tank that has less armor. So it's almost like, why wouldn't you choose the T-34? But regardless, since it fits in between the KV-1 L11 and the KV-1 ZIS-5, the KV-1 ZIS-5 has a battle rating of 4.7. This one will probably have 4.0 or 4.3, which kind of is unfortunate because the KV-1 L11 itself, I think, is a tank that doesn't really get its moment of glory. There's a lot of tanks that historically performed well, right? And a lot of that had to do with their date of introduction and who they fought and where they fought. Like this KV-1 was dealing with panzers that were armed with short, snubby 75s and 37mm armed tanks, right? I mean, the KV-1 came out in 1939. And then when you consider like a lot of what you're encountering, like Panzer IV F2 with a battle rating of 3.3, so you're going to be facing those things all the time, and they pen you with ease. And that thing came out in 1941, 1942. So it's kind of interesting the balance between dates, historical dates and historical accuracy, and battle ratings to kind of balance out certain things. Like the KV-1 should be an absolute terror of a tank. But its battle rating keeps it from really enjoying some of the success that it had historically. And that kind of makes me think, like, you either have to have a battle mode where you're like, every now and then we throw in a battle mode that's historical, like, hey, this battle had these tanks versus those tanks, you know, and like, oh, I get to play KV-1, look at all these little guys bouncing off me. You get to actually experience that. That would be fun. But that's just kind of a side thought. Yeah, so KV-1S will likely have a battle rating of 4.0 to 4.3, while the KV-1 ZIS-5 is sitting at 4.7 and the KV-1 L11 at 3.7. We are playing the KV-1 L11 right now, and you kind of get a feel for the deficiency of its gun, but decent armor when you're not dealing with Panzer IV F2s, which are just beasts, but they're glass cannons, so there's definitely the trade-off, right? But historically, the KV-1S, it's like, okay, KV-1s are slow, you know, we've got this big bulbous turret, so they made a smaller turret, a smaller, more streamlined turret. They took a lot of armor off, they gave it a new engine, a new transmission, finally. But it was kind of like, why do we need this? Because we have the T-34s with that beautiful 59-degree slope. Like, do we really need anything? We don't need a faster KV-1. We just need better T-34s. Or we need super heavy tanks like the IS-1s and IS-2s. So the KV-1S was kind of like, meh, we don't need it. And then there was like KV-85s and the KV-2, which is beloved amongst tankers everywhere, unless one shoots you. So, I mean, I'm still kind of wondering why the KV-1S is being put into the game right now. I understand that it should be in the game at some point. It was historically used. It was mass-produced. I think over 1,000 of them were produced. Maybe over 1,300 of KV-1Ss were produced. But it's like, what function does it really have? I kind of see it as one of these tanks that almost is, I call it a grinder tank. Like, okay, you're going up the KV-1 tree, you want to get up to the IS-1s, you want to get to the Joseph Stalin tanks. Okay, well, before there was a KV-1 L11, a KV-1 ZIS-5, a KV-85, and a KV-2. So there was, 4 there that you had to get through to get to, like, some arguably very, very good tanks in the IS series. But now there's a 5th one there. And this one itself is kind of like, you don't really need it. I don't think you really want it. If you want a fast, maneuverable tank with a good engine and you're a Soviet tanker, that's what the T-34 line is for. And you're probably grinding that simultaneously with the heavy tank line. So to me, I call it a grinder tank. I don't think it's needed right now. It's not needed for many, many more patches. I think what would be kind of good is drop the KV-1's battle rating maybe from 3.7 to, like, I don't know, a little lower, but like, it doesn't really get to experience the glory that it had in the early parts of World War II. Once Operation Barbarossa, and then dealing with the Finns, like the KV-1 was great. They loved it. But yeah, so KV-1S I don't think is needed. But hey, that's me. If you like its addition, that's cool. I mean, if you look at the dev server or the dev blogs right now and the tanks and vehicles that they've announced, I think both Russian tanks aren't needed. And actually, if you're a Russian tanker, it's kind of like, that's more of a hassle than anything cool. Like, so let's look at the 5 vehicles they've announced so far. The Dornier 335. This, I'm 100% yes. I think this is a great addition. The Focke-Wulf 189. Hell yes. I think this is my favorite vehicle they've added so far. There has been some criticism, a decent amount of criticism actually, with people being like, why is this an event plane? Why can't I just grind it in the tree? And it's almost, some people have even said, why isn't it not even premium? Because like, so it's almost like you want it in the tree as primary. Secondary, you want it as a premium. And third, a lot of you dislike the fact that it is an event vehicle. And I mean, the Focke-Wulf 189 was mass produced. There was a lot of them produced. So you could easily make the argument for it to be in the main tree. At first glance, I was like, oh, this is a plane that maybe otherwise would have been a premium, but instead you can earn it for free. I thought that was cool, but a lot of people did not. Hey, man, to each their own. So, basically as we go through these, let me know your opinions as to whether, they're good additions or not. So I'm a fan of the Dornier 335 being put in the tree. There's going to be 3 different versions. 1 is premium, 2 are non-premium, so that will be interesting. The premium one, however, is like a destroyer version, so it's going to be heavily armed and likely slower and less maneuverable. So while it will be premium and people could theoretically spam them, I don't think it will be a spam plane because the Dornier 335 destroyer version is likely going to be a very easy target if you're another fighter or attacker. Right? I'm wondering how good it would be against. I think it'll be good against bombers. I hope it'd be good against armored vehicles. I would like to see the aircraft that used ballistics-based weapons. Like the Panzerknacker or the HS-129, like planes that had high-caliber cannons, be used to more effect within War Thunder. There's a lot of them that just don't have the shells, they don't have the rounds, and they're unable to pen tanks, in realistic battles, which is a shame because that's what they're made for. And there's so many other cool options we could be added in the future, right? So then there's the so moving on from the Focke-Wulf 189, which I think I'm happy that plane is being put into the game. I think a lot of people are disappointed in the way in which it's put in the game. And honestly, though, if it's an event plane, I think that's better than it being like a cash grab premium. And hey, that's my opinion on it. And then there's the Falcon SPAA. I'm happy with that addition as well. It's a tier 5 British self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. That should be a lot of fun, especially with the fire rate of those 30s. It will be tier 5, so like if you think about it, the Germans have 30 firing, but like it's not a tier 5. I think that'll be great against planes. I don't know how well it will be against most tanks at tier 5, but then again, there are the Leopards in other lightly armored tanks, so it might do well. But then the KV-1S and the T-44-100, and I think both of these vehicles are grinder tanks. But if you look at the general, what would you say, just like the hype train, or whatever the equivalent of a hype train is, like just the negativity train when it comes to certain Russian tanks, maybe you're happy. If you're not a Russian tanker, I guess you'd be happy with these additions because it put another obstacle in the way of Russian tankers to get what they might be really going for. In the KV-1S, what you're really going for is, you want to get that KV-2, you want to get in the IS-1 and the IS-2 and so forth. And with the T-44-100, it's basically like, hey, what's the point, man? Only one of that version was produced, and it's in the main tech tree. I think that's silly. I don't agree with that at all, personally. But it's being done, right? Think about that. The T-44-100, 2 different prototypes were produced, and they're like, meh, we don't need these. We've got the T-54. So that thing's being put in the tech tree, and it's really just a grinder to kind of maybe not let many... I mean, Russian tanks are the most accessible because they perform pretty damn well. They did historically, and they do in the game. And there's all that Russian bias and all that stuff, and a lot of, I don't know if Russian bias is really in the game anymore. There were times when I first started playing War Thunder, man, when you'd fly out in your German planes and you just get your ass kicked by Russian planes. There's some vehicles, don't get me wrong, there's some vehicles in the game still which overperform. We all know that, right? But over time, those overperforming planes have had their errors, and like truly Russian bias. What about American bias? American jets. Talk about that, guys, huh? It's not just Russian bias. Like, different nations have had their time. And in the early days, ladies and gents, you guys probably weren't there, man. But there was a German jet bias. Especially when the battle ratings, or not battle ratings, the tiers, like when you get on late at night, and there'd be people in 163s just clubbing the shit out of when it was a 20 tier system, right? So there was all kinds of shit, but I over time, see, that's why like people are like, hey Baron, why aren't you negative? Why don't you complain about stuff? Because I've been here a while, boys. I've been here. I've been since like early patches. I celebrated my 3-year anniversary earlier this month. I mean, I've seen things, guys. I've seen things, right? So yeah, there's some stuff that sucks, and then it gets changed. That's just the way it is. Then some things take a while to get changed, like, and there's some jets still out there, like the F2H, you know what I mean? MiG-15 was like, oh, MiG-15 for a while, then they added the MiG-17. I don't think that did them any credit. But all I'm saying is, all around, I think things will be fixed. And honestly, if there's so far, the 5 vehicles added to this patch, the T-44-100 and the KV-1S, while they're interesting and they are unique pieces of history, as far as like the grinding element is concerned, they're actually, I would say, more negative in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, is the T-44-100 an improvement from the T-44 with the 85? Absolutely. But instead of jumping from the T-44 with the 85 to the T-54 with the 100, so better armor and the 100, you go to the T-44-100, which is just like a subversion of the T-54. And then there's the KV-1S. It's like, oh yeah, we got this thing, which is kind of just like a big T-34 without that amazing slope on the front, and just a bigger silhouette and higher silhouette to shoot at. Good job. Good job. You wanna drive that thing around? I don't think so. But those are my thoughts. Mine and mine alone. So, Dornier 335, 2 thumbs up. Focke-Wulf 189, 2 thumbs up. Falcon SPAA, I don't know, 1.5 thumbs up. I don't know how that's gonna play yet. T44-100, meh. KB1S, meh. But you know what? If you think about it, all the crap that, like, everyone's like, oh, this patch, it's more Russian stuff, you know, but like this time, so far, they're not looking like, damn, the Russians really get a jump up ahead again. No, not with these two things. I don't think so. And the T44-100, there was one made, guys. That thing should be a premium, but I guess, you know, like, I don't know, maybe it'd be thought of as another T34-100, but you know what? Yeah, actually, it's actually the T44-100 in the main tree is better there if you're not a Russian tanker than with it being premium. But anyway, so this is a video that was about the KV-1S. I think, hey man, it's not really needed at this point. There's so many other vehicles. French Char B1 as a German premium, or maybe even as a British premium, but like the Germans use them. There's so many vehicles. Italian planes, French planes and tanks, even some Italian tanks. Like, put them in as premiums for the Germans, man. There's like, those things would sell like hotcakes. And see, that's the thing. That's where it's a win-win. A French Char B1 is a win-win. Gaijin makes a bucket load of money, and they can pay people. They can continue paying people to make more models and do more patch updates, maybe even quicker. And the player base is like, holy shit, this is like, it's like the KV1 and Matilda, like the heavy tank, but like at what, maybe a BR or tier 1. So that thing would be amazing. You'd see those things fill in the field, right? And it would be so fun because it's an amazing tank, and it had such a very, like, it was a very, very good tank for its time. So those things would sell like hotcakes. Everybody would love it unless you fought them, and they'd make a lot of money. Put that in. But hey, that's my thoughts. Every time I cover a vehicle, I'm gonna mention the Char B1 until we get one in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.